Durante, NBC 10
Henry
News.
is standing by live at the accident scene with the latest developments tonight. David.
Well, that's right, Rick. It happened right here outside Kayla's home, just a few steps from her home on Ridge Avenue 2 months ago today. Tonight, her family and friends will be holding a vigil in her honor amidst rumors that charges may soon be filed against the woman who was driving the car, or who may have been driving the car, that killed Kayla. This is the last picture ever taken of 15-year-old Kayla Peter. It was snapped by a friend's cell phone camera. An hour and a half later, she would be dead. The car that killed Kayla was found 3 days later in this driveway at the corner of Henry Avenue and Queen Lane. It is owned by celebrity chef Susanna Goyman, who owns the Azafran restaurant on South Street. Goyman has refused to talk to police and has now fled to Miami, where she's staying here in her parents' spacious, luxurious condominium on the waterfront. Police sources say they are close to filing charges, but there will be no action taken until next week at the earliest. Kayla's friends are becoming impatient.
It's ridiculous because they know it's her car, they know where she was that night, and they should just arrest her.
Molly's mother has been spearheading a series of vigils outside Goyman's East Falls home. They'll be there again tonight.
To keep the message of Kayla alive, to keep it alive, and what a message. Here are well over 200 people in this corner, and where are you, Ms. Goyman? In Miami.
Some feared that Goyman, who's a native of Venezuela, might flee the country. She has sold her restaurant, a deal that was in the works before the accident. Action News has learned that she does not have dual citizenship, that she has only an American passport. Kayla's friends say if Goyman had a conscience, she'd be cooperating with the police.
I don't believe the woman has a heart or a soul. I don't.
Now, the case against Goyman is still before a grand jury, and the police are hoping to bring charges soon. They are asking everyone to be patient.
Police say Susanna Goyman owns the car that hit the teen. Tonight, supporters protested outside Goyman's home and then gathered for a candlelight vigil. Also a slideshow to remember Kayla. Sources tell NBC 10 authorities are almost ready to arrest Goyman, but they fear the Venezuelan national might flee the country. She's selling her South Philadelphia restaurant and staying with family in Florida. Police say damage on Goyman's Lexus is consistent with evidence found at the accident scene. Now, news of an imminent arrest brings hope to Kayla Peters' friends.
No child deserves this. No human being deserves this. You know, and for Ms. Goyman to not own up to it. It is devastating.
Exactly 2 months after the hit and run that claimed her life, a vigil was held tonight for Kayla Peter. Her family, friends, and neighbors want justice, and sources say an arrest in the case is in the works. Valerie LeVake is live in Philadelphia's East Falls neighborhood with more. Val.
Alicia, sources say that an arrest warrant for Susanna Goyman, if approved by the district attorney, could be issued next week. Meanwhile, today marks the 2-month anniversary of Kayla Peters' death, and tonight her friends held a vigil right here in front of Goyman's home. Friends are holding onto a light of hope and justice for Kayla Peter.
We forget for this child, we forget for every child.
Over 100 friends gathered on this 2-month anniversary of the hit-and-run accident that took the 15-year-old's life on Ridge Avenue in East Falls, just a few feet away from her home. They watched a video documenting Kayla's life.
I just cried, think of Kayla and how she was.
There were smiles and tears as those who love Kayla remembered.
I see her throwing her head back and running her hands through her hair and just laughing and saying thanks.
She was the best friend a girl could have. She'd listen to you. She was a good friend.
And her friends have not forgotten her. They have orchestrated numerous honking campaigns at the home of Susanna Goyman.
Everything goes through perfectly, and so this can stop. I mean, she's always going to be in our hearts.
Now, Goyman is in Miami, where her parents live. Her attorney did not return our calls for comment. Meanwhile, Kayla Peters' family and friends say that they will continue with their crusade.
Last night, protesters gathered outside the Azafran restaurant at 3rd and South Street. The restaurant is owned by Susanna Goyman. Now, Goyman, police say, owns the white Lexus that struck and killed Peter. She was not been charged with the deadly accident. And demonstrators have also protested outside of Goyman's home. Police say they're still trying to determine exactly who was driving that Lexus at the time of the hit and run.
Well, Rob, a source tells
Action News that this arrest warrant for the owner of the car is in its preparation stages, and that's all the friends of the victim needed to hear. Never has anyone been more excited about a possible arrest than the friends and family of Kayla Peter, the 15-year-old who was killed in a hit-and-run in front of her house back on June 19th. A source tells Action News an arrest warrant is being prepared for the owner of the car that hit the girl. Even if it doesn't turn out to be as severe a charge as desired, any way to get Susanna Goyman back into the Philadelphia jurisdiction is viewed as a positive step.
I'd love to see her in handcuffs.
And what would you say?
I wouldn't, well, welcome back, Susanna. Welcome back. Now take the medicine.
Donna has organized daily protests in front of Goyman's East Falls home, outraged that the former restaurant owner would not willingly talk with police investigating Kayla's death. Goyman is quoted in published reports as saying she moved closer to her parents in Florida to get away from the stress, and her attorney tells Action News he is unaware of any pending arrest. Sensing justice is just around the corner, many of Kayla's friends gathered tonight to watch a photo montage of their beloved friend's life. While they're hopeful this is the beginning of the end, no matter how long it takes, they will wait for the day when someone takes responsibility for taking Kayla's life.
She's not here, but she's still here in spirit, and we are her voices.
Whether there is any type of charge filed tomorrow, friends and family of Kayla Peter say they will gather tomorrow night for a huge vigil to mark the second-month anniversary of Kayla's death.
Susanna Goyman has surrendered to Philadelphia police. She is the woman at the center of a deadly hit-and-run case. Her car was used to kill a 15-year-old girl, and ever since, her home and restaurant have been targeted by protesters. Tonight, she is in police custody, and family members say justice is finally being served.
It is Monday night, and the big story on Action News this evening is new developments in the hit-and-run death of Kayla Peter. The East Falls teenager was killed as she walked home in June after hanging out with friends. She was just feet from her doorstep. Action News reporter David Henry joins us live in East Falls with the very latest on the investigation. David.
Well, Rick, that arrest warrant was issued this morning, and just a few minutes later, Susanna Goyman turned herself in at police headquarters. Kayla Peter's family has been waiting 2 months for this. Susanna Goyman was flanked by 2 lawyers as she arrived at police headquarters. She's charged with leaving the scene of a fatal accident. It's a felony, and conviction means a mandatory minimum of 1 year in jail. There may be more serious charges coming, but police rushed to file this charge when they learned Goyman, a native of Venezuela, had gone to stay with her parents at their upscale condominium in Florida.
We don't know what was in her head, but Miami is a lot closer to Venezuela than Philadelphia is.
All we've been wondering the past few months was, why can't they make her talk? Why can't they make her come in and answer what happened?
A grand jury continues to investigate the accident. Reluctant witnesses have been called to testify, including bartenders. If police can prove that Goyman had been drinking at a Manayunk bar just before the accident, she faces more serious charges with much harsher penalties. Kayla's family says they want only justice.
I just want to see justice take its course. You know, a lot's happened, and I just want her to do the right thing.
Goyman was wearing a Mickey Mouse sweatshirt today. Coincidentally, Mickey is the mascot of Hallahan High, where Kayla would have been a sophomore this year. Goyman will be arraigned later this evening. The district attorney is expected to ask for $500,000 bail. Live in East Falls, I'm David Henry, Channel 6.
In police custody tonight.
Philadelphia police say a car owned by Goyman hit and killed a teen in East Falls. Today, Goyman turned herself into Philadelphia police to face those charges. She is being charged with leaving the scene of an accident. Police say the driver of the car never stopped.
The prosecutor would never charge anybody with an offense that we're not prepared to prove.
She has, since this incident occurred, had to deal with vandalism, harassment, abuse.
Renee, this is the day that the family of Kayla Peter had been waiting 2 months for. They say nothing can bring back the 15-year-old, but at least now they're starting to get some closure.
Everyone's been beside me and behind me.
Melissa Mann says the last 2 months have been a nightmare.
I didn't think it was going to take as long as it did before they could get her to talk or to get anyone to talk, not just Goyman, but just because they knew it was her car. I was just waiting for, like, why couldn't they just bring her in and make her talk? My mom keeps saying, I didn't know Kayla knew so many people. And I'm like, neither did I.
NBC 10 was there as Mann and the organizers of the protest celebrate the news together of Susanna Goyman's arrest.
If this would have happened to one of Kayla's friends, she would have been right there with everybody at the protests or anything that happened. Kayla would have been right there. She loved to be involved in everything.
Disappeared into the darkness.
Any comment on the charges?
She would never knowingly injure a child and leave her behind. And that did not happen.
I'd like to know why she wasn't knowing. And was it a deer that was romping across Ridge Avenue? How can you be not knowing?
Now, with Goyman's arrest, neighbors say they're convinced the system's working. But at Kayla's home, there's only a quiet memorial and a police warning sign telling drivers to slow down.
Nothing's ever going to bring her back to us. We're going to love her. We're going to miss her forever. We hope to see her again someday.
Now, the criminal charge that Goyman's facing, leaving the scene of an accident, may be just the first wave. A grand jury is still working, and more serious charges could be coming. Meanwhile, there's a question about whether or not Goyman will be released on bail when she's arraigned, probably within the next 18 to 24 hours. The DA's asked for high bail. We'll have to see what happens when arraignment comes. Live in East Falls, Walt Hunter,
is
CBS
behind
3
bars tonight, facing charges. She left the scene of a fatal accident, a charge that requires a mandatory 1-year jail sentence. As Dave Schratweiser reports, more serious charges could be coming soon.
The 42-year-old restaurateur was tight-lipped on whether she was behind the wheel of her Lexus the night of June 19th.
It's a very difficult day for her and her family, and despite this, her thoughts and her prayers are obviously with this child's family.
A city grand jury is still pursuing vehicular homicide and other charges.
We wouldn't charge her with leaving the scene of an accident involving a fatality if we didn't have sufficient proof to a fact finder that she was in fact guilty of this charge.
Were you driving the car? Goyman's surrender came after police learned the Venezuelan-born woman was in Miami last week. They feared she might flee the country, so the less serious charge was filed and substantial bail requested.
All I wanted her to do is talk and give answers to all the questions that we've had.
Kayla's parents thank police and protesters who picketed Goyman's home and restaurant for days, demanding justice.
To us, this truly is the city of brotherly love.
Let me know what happened to my baby.
McMonigal says his client looks forward to the day she can tell her side of the story in court. In the meantime, sources confirm Goyman was in Florida recently, not only visiting relatives, but seeking treatment at a rehabilitation center. In East Falls, Dave Schratweiser, Fox 29 News.
Goyman is awaiting arraignment on those charges. She has sold her restaurant. The Peter family has filed a notice of their intent to sue Goyman over Kayla's death.
Did it strike you as odd that Goyman would show up to police headquarters in a Mickey Mouse sweatshirt? And in a weird twist of irony, Mickey Mouse is the official mascot of Peters High School. Well, those who knew Peter told me this was the ultimate slap in the face. Donna Persico has been instrumental in leading the rallies outside Goyman's home. She says when she saw Goyman walk into police custody, she was filled with mixed emotions.
Unbelievably happy that they had gotten her and that she was going to be accountable. Absolute disgust at the fact that she wore the sweatshirt.
That sweatshirt with the cartoon character on it, Persico says, was offensive on two fronts.
Mickey Mouse is the mascot for Hallahan High School, where Kayla went to school. That sickened me. It disgusted every part of my being that could be disgusted.
But what if it was a twisted coincidence? Maybe Goyman had no idea it was Holloman's mascot. Persico says that's just as bad.
What were they advertising? No, I got away from Philadelphia and the stress of this trial, and I went to Disney World. What is that?
Persico put this giant Mickey Mouse in her front yard in memory of Kayla.
The children have learned a lot this summer. A sad way to learn, but they have.